All right, so once we figure out who's on the play, we'll get a little bit of a head start on the game. I know we've been making them wait around for us. I'm sorry about that. But if Naya Blitz is on the play, I think that they're very heavily favored. Zachary only has one Supreme Verdict in the main deck, which is huge. His 2 Syncopates and 2 Rewinds are mostly negated by the 4 Caverner Souls from Josh's deck, so that should be interesting to watch, and I assume that he'll be siding them out. But Band Flash looks like he won the roll, leads with a Temple Garden.
Yeah, and basically what Josh Rose wants. Josh Rose really, really wants a Thalia, Guardian of Throbbing. That's the key card in this matchup that shuts off the Advents for another turn, makes things like Thought Scour cost 1 more, Syncopate, just makes these way worse.
Right, and I feel like he's going to be a lands above creatures guy. I don't know if I can root for him anymore.
Yeah.
I like Naya Blitz, but I can't stay. I don't like that.
You know, I'm Team Zach myself, obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So
he spells it differently though, right?
Yeah, he does, but I can get over it. You know, ERY, he didn't choose it. His parents chose it. Not his fault.
Sure.
Not
so, you know, Zach holding up 2 mana, he could have, you know, basically any of his instant speed spells, including Azorius Charm and things like that. Caverner Souls, obviously naming Human to cast Burning Tree, triggers Champion. Flint Hoof Boar seems like, yep, that's a really good one to have. Now, Zach's in a really tough spot. His Azorius Charm is going to slow the beats down a little bit. Hopefully he can make it to 5 mana and cast his Advent of the Worm to brick wall the rest of the team. But he still has to get through one more big turn from Josh.
Right. Now, important to note, Zach Byrd, no Thragtusks in his deck. The only way that he has to gain life are the bad mode of Azorius Charm, or rather the situational mode, and Sphinx's Revelation.
Yep, and that's pretty common from the banned flash decks that have been popping up last week in the hands of Matt Costa. Jerry Thompson wrote an article about it. I talked about it briefly in my last article. You know, and I think here he can use Celestial Charm with the mode of make a 2/2 and block the Burning Tree. The Flint Hoof Boar obviously is a 3/3 turned on by the Sacred Foundry. I think that's what Zach's going to do here is just make a blocker, next turn hopefully just play a land and make a 5/5. It's, you know, instant speed, really put a kink in Josh's game plan.
Right, so it looks like Selesnya Charm will trade with Burning Tree Emissary, unless Josh has a Searing Spear.
Yep. I mean, it doesn't look like he has one. He just decides to trade, or he would just rather play a couple of creatures this turn.
Right.
While Frontline Medic would normally be good here, not only can it turn off, you know, Sphinx's Revelation potentially, but it will also let him attack through Advent of the Worm. However, it doesn't look like he has that ability next turn, so if he decides to attack, I feel like he's going to get blown out. It doesn't look like he has... Oh, he has 2 Gore-Clan Rampager to get through the Worm, so he needs a green source here, and he needs to have a Gore-Clan Rampager off the top.
Right, otherwise the 5/5 will just eat a champion for breakfast or a Flint Hoof Boar for breakfast and be impassable.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be a champion if he plays a human pre-combat to make it a 3/3. Not having a Gore-Clan Rampager here means that he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Not only is the 5/5, you know, a gigantic blocker, but being able to threaten later in the game once you've established control via other means is pretty huge. So he's going to trigger both of his champions here, playing the Mighty Mauler, probably giving it haste. You know, that keeps him... He should probably pair with the 3/3 champion, because that's the one that's most likely to die.
Right.
I think he's instead choosing to port with a bear, which is a slight mistake, but it's not something that is overly relevant, but could come back and bite him, since the Advent of Worm's almost certainly going to block the 3/3 champion.
Yep, and there it is. Advent of the Worm, really just...
A surprising card. It's so good.
Defining card of Standard now.
Yeah, and with these flash decks, it's so awesome to be able to have a threat that big and that powerful at instant speed. And so you don't ever have to cast it on your turn. Your opponent never knows whether or not you have it. It makes their attacks, you know, that much worse. And it's just an overall great card, and it fits into this deck so perfectly. It does force your mana base to be a little bit awkward sometimes since it is double green, but, you know, it's worth the risk, I think.
Yeah, it really is. You know, especially with Zach's deck list, he can go Rewind into Advent. He can go, oh, you didn't attack with your creatures? Well, instead, I'll just play like a Selesnya Charm or an Azorius Charm or a Resto to attack you.
Yep. All right, and Zach does have unsummons in his deck. I think 3 unsummons. He had one there he could have taken off the Augur of Bolas instead of opting for the Azorius Charm. Basically a soft block on Josh. He's not going to be able to attack. Even if he gets like Frontline Medic, it's going to be a little awkward just because he can't give it haste. But I think that's what he's about to cast here.
Yeah, and like you said, the mispair really costing him here. The Medic can't crash in.
Yeah, I mean, even if he could pair, it wouldn't be particularly strong since the Azure Charm can put it on top, and then Augur can block the 2/1, and Worm can block the 3/3, so he would take 3 damage down to 7. So, I mean, it's relevant because he's missing on 3 points of damage. Although now Zach gets to untap with, you know, an Azure Charm and potentially other weapons in hand. I see a Thought Scour, I think a second Azure Charm, and a Snapcaster Mage.
Really powerful if he draws another land.
Yeah, agreed. It's relevant to note that occasionally Champion of the Parish does get over up to the 5/5 limit, so that Celestia Charm can potentially exile it off the Snapcaster Mage. But I'm assuming that if Josh decides to attack with everything the next turn, he's just going to get Azorius Charmed a bunch. So
right. And yeah, I think Zach will more likely save that Snapcaster Mage for the Advent when he draws another land.
Right. I mean, it is kind of problematic for Zach to deal with the frontline medic. Sure, he can, you know, charm it, but you know, he's still going to take some damage from the other creatures. And since the frontline medic did get to attack, his trigger will still happen, and they will be indestructible even if he's not in play. So it could, you know, be an uphill battle for Zach, even though it looks like he's not in terrible shape. He is at 10 life, and, you know, some things could come down here and really start to hurt him.
Yep, and as far as reach goes, in the main deck, Josh Rose has 3 Searing Spears, 2 Gort Clan Rampagers.
Yeah, and a few other haste creatures, so, you know, a few things to bust through, you know, unexpectedly, but, yeah.
So, yeah, here they come.
So I don't understand not attacking with the Lightning Mauler, since the guys are indestructible. I think maybe he just didn't, in his head, I guess, maybe he thought that his creatures didn't get indestructible if the frontline medic left play, something to that nature. But just a slight miscalculation, I believe. The Augur of Bolus will die from any of the creatures that it blocks. So maybe that's the thing. Like he knew that Augur Bolus was going to die regardless of what it blocked, unless he attacked with Mauler. So maybe holding back the Mauler just made it irrelevant. So.
Right, so here come the creatures, right where they belong in the red zone.
Yeah. Yeah. See, when you have to move your lands out of the way to declare blocks, that's not magic, man. Come on, what are you doing?
This isn't magic. Stop the game. This isn't magic.
Yeah. All right, so we take no damage. We get to move our lands back into place to cast our spells.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, Azorius Charm puts that medic on top.
Yeah, well, I think he's got a... Oh, he doesn't have anything else. Okay, so medic next turn. Still not able to pair since he paired with the Boar, which, you know, again, probably a mistake that cost him a few points of damage, and sometimes with Naya Blitz, that's all that it takes.
Exactly, and, you know, this mistake is just compounding turn after turn, because every turn that Zach Azorius Charms is a turn that Josh misses at least 3 points of damage.
Yep. So here, I think that Zach is going to try to race. It looked like he was going to. He has, I think, a pair of Snapcaster Mages now. I thought he had a Thought Scour. I don't know why he wouldn't have cast it last turn. So he might have drawn a land, and he's going to go Snap. Nope, he did not. So.
Oh, does he have 3 Snapcasters in hand? Is that what that is?
No, I actually still think it was a Thought Scour. I think he may have just forgotten to cast Thought Scour. So. Small, like, tiny blunders from each side, you know, they happen, especially when you start playing on camera. You get a little nervous, especially playing for top 8.
Yeah, this is round 9, too.
Yeah, round 9 after a long day. I've made my fair share of mistakes, especially on camera, so I know all about that. I mean, playing sometimes just get to you, you know? There's not a whole lot you can do about it.
You know, you see the camera over the guy's shoulder, you know there's a camera behind your shoulder, you see the one above, all the people watching around. It's tough, you know, you say, how can these guys make the mistake that bad? Well, you try playing on camera and come back and tell me how easy it is. It's not.
Yeah. So here comes a Snapcaster Mage, which is more than likely going to flashback Azorius Charm. And then he's probably going to put the Champion of the Parish on top and trade off with the Lightning Mauler, which seems like a solid play. He takes 3 down to 7 from the Boar, trading with the Lightning Mauler more than likely.
Yep, there it is.
And follow-up frontline medic no longer has battalion, so he's going to have to draw a creature with haste off the top or something like that in order to really pull back and take this game over.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, though, he knows the top card of his deck. It's a useless champion. It's a 1/1.
Yep. Rewind, not really going to do a whole lot since the Cavernous Souls are there. If Josh does happen to draw a Searing Spear, something that he could counter, but since it's an instant speed card, it feels unlikely that Rewind's going to get anything relevant.
Yeah, for sure. Unless Josh just points it right at the dome during his main phase, that Rewind's not going to do anything.
So just plays a champion that he got Azorius Charm last turn, passes the turn. I guess here he's contemplating Snapcaster Azorius Charm just to draw a card, but I don't think that's the right play. So he just untaps draws the 6th land, and now he can Snapcaster and Advent of the Worm. So he still is looking at, some damage coming his way that he can't kill the creatures. Like, he's just going to be taking 1 from the champion, and he's going to be able to use the Advents of the Worm to block both of the 3/3s. But a Gore-Cleaner Rampager here could end up, sealing his fate.
Right, and if I'm Zach Byrd, I'm slamming the Snapcaster. I can't see any reason not to regrow the Advent.
Yeah,
that makes your clock so much better.
He does have an Azorius Charm in hand, and there's the argument that, he needs to have the Azorius Charm open in case of a Rampager. But I think this is just the one window you have to give Josh where he either had the Rampager early on and was not able to use it, and now is the turn where he's going to get to destroy you with it, or, he has nothing and he's going to die. So
more likely he has nothing. He's been drawing the same card turn
Sure,
after
but
turn.
He did have a fresh draw step this turn because he cast the champion last turn. So I'm pretty sure he's just going to take 1 from the champion, and Josh just needs a Rampager to get through those worms. So he decides to trade a Snapcaster Mage for 1 damage, which I'm not... I mean, maybe that's the right play, so he doesn't lose a double Searing Spear or some nonsense. But now he has Azorius Charm up, and I think he has another Snapcaster too. So now he can Snap and then Azorius and Snap. Yep, that is another Snapcaster Mage.
Ooh, lifelink.
The odd man out, if you will, on the modes. So he's going to gain 10 life up to 17. And Josh is just going to concede.
Yeah, that's all she wrote. 10 life, 20-point life swing, too much for Josh Rose. The Advent of the Worm just really kept Zach in that game.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's a Restoration Angel type card. It doesn't have flying, but the trample on it is incredibly relevant, as well as the 2 extra power. Against all the slower decks in the format, the 5/5 versus the 3/4 is the main difference, because there's not really a whole lot of combat going on where you block, the Restoration Angel anyway. And since it's a 5/5 trample, you're not going to block it profitably regardless. So let's talk about how we think they're going to sideboard.
Okay. Well, Zach Byrd has a few options in his board. The one that's going to come in for sure is Supreme Verdict. The ones that are almost definitely going to come in for Voice of Resurgence, just amazing against Naya Blitz.
Yeah, nothing else really looks too appropriate.
Yeah, he could bring in the Renounce the Guilds if he really wanted to, but it's so unimpressive.
It's not great. Like, in the main deck, all he really has to hit with is a Burning Tree Emissary.
Right.
I don't think the Boros Reckoner is a card that's going to come in the sideboard. So, while Renounce the Guild, it's a little too narrow in this matchup. You want removal against this kind of deck, but you don't want removal that only kills one of their guys.
Right.
For Josh, who's playing Naya Blitz, we have access to 3 Boros Charms, which can counter effectively the Supreme Verdicts. They also can just go to the Dome if he's able to get Zach to a low enough life total. And then that's basically it. He has a couple of Gruul Charms, some Boros Reckoners, Purify the Grave, which it can shut down Snapcaster Mage. And I think that's actually a common fallacy with people who sideboard Graveyard Hate, is that they think it's, actively good against Snapcaster Mage. But the problem is the Snapcaster Mage is still a 2/1 creature for 2 mana, even if you have a way to get rid of the card that they're going to flashback. So you're trading, like some time and some mana to, slow your opponent's, card down. It's a good card, obviously, but you're not gaining as much of an advantage as I would like, and I would much rather just have a creature in that spot if you're playing a Naya Blitz deck.
Right. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if Zach Byrd had Ambush Viper in his sideboard available, he'd probably side it in.
Yeah,
so
sure.
You're not doing that much.
Yeah.
I could see siding in 1, though, maybe.
Right.
Maybe having a Misers.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what he wants to take out. His deck's all creatures, and none of them are really that bad in this matchup. Searing Spear seems a little awkward, although it does kill Augur Bolus. So, I mean, that would be the only consideration for a cut, I think. But he's probably just going to cut Searing Spear for Boros Charm, so he doesn't cut down on his threat density, and that allows him to have a card that stops the Supreme Verdict, which is the best card that Zach can have against his deck, as long as he's able to, stifle the early development and get to 4 mana.
Right. So while these players shuffle, I can give you guys a rundown of the standings after the round. I'll let you guys know who's in contention. Probably locked up: Daniel Battle, Danny Lee, Adam Beauchamp, Robert Rush. Those are the players that drew. The players that are playing for the remaining 4 slots: Ali Antrazi, Ben Reagan, Steve Kaufman, Tony Zamberlin, Zach Byrd, who we have on camera, Josh Rose, across from him. The last 2, Tyler Phelps and Nick Lanzo. So if you hear any of your friends, get on Twitter, use the hashtag SCGCHAR, start rooting for him.
We should just be SCG Charizard.
SCG
Let's just move all in. Everyone loves Pokemons.
Well, day 1 it'd probably be like SCG
Charmander. Yeah, or Charmander.
Charmander.
Charmander. Yeah. Okay, fair. And then maybe, so at the GP, like the day 2, the top 8 evolves into Charizard?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, sure.
The ultimate form.
Yeah. So we have Zach Byrd playing Band Flash up a game against Josh Rose in the final round of Standard. They're playing for a slot in the top 8 and a lot of cash monies.
Oh, yeah.
If you guys are ever wondering whether or not you should come to a Star City Games Open Series event, I would highly recommend it. It's a ton of fun. I travel to as many as I can to play in them. I was fortunate enough to be able to do commentary this weekend alongside my good buddy now, Zach Hall, who we didn't really interact much before this weekend, but when you sit next to a guy for 14 hours talking about Magic, you get close quick.
Yeah, you're either friends or one's dead.
Yeah.
Easy. Easy to figure out. By round 2,
Yeah.
you generally know which one it's going to be, and luckily for me, I don't want to go to prison. I like Todd. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're hanging out with somebody that long, you just start to get each other's skin. So, but yeah, we have some opening hands here. So Josh Nia Blitz is going to be on the play, which is where it wants to be. However, mulliganing to 6 is not where he wants to be. Every mulligan that Nia Blitz takes is that much more detrimental to its game plan. A lot of times, you mulligan the 1-landers, you mulligan, the 5-landers, or even the 4-landers sometimes, if your other cards aren't good enough, because you can't really afford to get mana screwed or mana flooded with this deck. And that's one of its biggest drawbacks for anyone who, wants to play it, is, the mana is a little weak, because you are a 3-color aggro deck that plays very heavily on all 3 colors, because you have a ton of red cards and a ton of green and white cards. You're a green-white based deck, but you need to turn on your Flinthoof boards to make them actually playable. You need to be able to cast your Lightning Maulers. You need to be able to activate your Gorkilling Rampager and play your Searing Spears.
It's really tough,
Yep.
It's like you want to draw 1 Cavern of Souls, you want to draw 1 Temple Garden, 1 Stomping Ground, 1 Sacred Foundry, a 1-drop, a 2-drop, a 3-drop. It's tough. You have to get a perfect draw, and as a result, the deck mulligans a lot.
Yep. So it looks like Josh Rose doesn't have a 1-drop. He's on the play with a Sacred Foundry. That means his hand's probably full of gas. The hands that Nia Blitz can keep that don't have a 1-drop usually involve multiple Burning Trees. And if he goes Burning Tree into Burning Tree into Burning Tree into Mayor of Averbrook, not a bad start. Not a bad start.
Not so bad. So 1,
that's
2,
not bad
okay.
either.
That's
So he gets to pair up here with the Lightning Mauler, smash in for 4. Not a bad start, even though he didn't have a 1-drop.
Yep, so 4 Power Haste on turn 2, Zach Byrd on 16 before he has a second land.
Yeah, just imagine if he had a Champion of the Parish attacking for 7 on turn 2.
Not so bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. Even a Boris Elite, still attacking for 7. The deck can be incredibly explosive, and I saw a Mayor of Averbrook, and so he could play Mayor of Averbrook here, attack for 6, putting Zach to 10 if he doesn't have a Charm or any sort of defense. It looks like he drew a Champion of the Parish, followed by this Mayor of Averbrook, which is going to pump his team and put a counter on the champion.
Yep, so Mayor of Averbrook gives all humans +1/+1. We're unlikely to see its flipped form, but you never know.
Well, if it does flip, it'll likely flip back very quickly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Zach did side in Renounce the Guild, like you said. I guess Zach minds think alike.
Yeah, there we go, Team Zach.
Yeah, so the Renounce the Guild's taking care of the Burning Tree. Doesn't really have a lot of targets. I still don't like it that much, but, I mean, it's better than not having any removal spell at all on that spot.
Right, it's probably better than still having something like a Rewind in your deck.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he had the Voices, he had the Supreme Verdict, he had 5 cards to bring in, he had 2 Rewinds, 2 Syncopates to take out. I don't know what else he took out for the 2 Renounce the Guilds, but, maybe he thought Selesnya Charm's not that great, but making a 2/2 to be able to trade with, like, any guy might be a little bit better, than not. Ooh, and this might actually be bad for Zach.
Wow, he didn't have a play on his turn, so the Mayor flipped into Howlpack Alpha.
Yep, and at the end of Josh's turn, if Howlpack Alpha is still in play, he'll get a 2/2 Wolf, which will morph into a 3/3 Wolf because of the ability. Now, I liked the option to not attack with the Mayor of Averbrook because that kept him from losing to Azorius Charm. But, oh man, this is really bad for Zach Byrd. I think this is probably going to end up going to a Game 3 now. So Zach just has a Naked Snapcaster Mage to block and trade with a Champion of the Parish. But the Mayor of Averbrook's going to get a guy next turn. The only way Zach's going to pull out this game is with a Supreme Verdict. Right. And this Gorkland Rampager,
wow,
that's a lot of damage. So we get a 6/6 Champion, which is going to trample for 5. +3 +2 is 10. So we're going to put Zach to 3. Dead to any Boris Charm, dead to any Searing Spear, and even if Zach has a Supreme Verdict, any big haste guy off the top will kill him too.
Yeah, Zach Byrd in a really tough spot here. He needs to slam Supreme Verdict to have any shot, and we'll see if he has one. Thought Scour not going to do it.
Well, and bang.
There it is. And the wolf comes in just in time to hit the bin. And we'll see if Josh has it.
That's funny. And And
Wow,
nope.
nothing.
All right,
Just
so
a burning
we
tree.
may pull back into this game if we're Zach Byrd. You know, this Advent of the Worm going to put up a nice blocker here with a potential clock to start swinging back once he stabilizes. However, he is dead to a multitude of cards from Josh's deck.
Yeah, the longer this game goes on, the more time Josh Rose has to draw into anything.
Yep.
I'm not
Looks
sure I
like
really
he's just
like
got
that
all
attack.
lands. I mean, it's debatable. You know, like it's an attack where you have to try to kill your opponent. You know what your outs are, and even like getting your opponent to play his worm there. You know, it could give you maybe later information. So you know that if he has the worm, he's going to cast it and not try to, play around a Boros Charm or a Searing Spear.
Right.
Not going to go to 1 because he just wants to make sure he's using all his mana every turn. Here now he has Resto and a Thought Scour and a Voice of Resurgence.
Yeah.
So really needing a Sphinx's Revelation to make sure he doesn't just die to a burn spell. And I think he drew it.
How about that? Team Zach
Team
looks like
Zach.
it might be top 8ing at 7:02.
All right. Well, he's end of turning. He played the Resto. The optional trigger will not blink out the guy. So here he's going to battle for 8, putting Josh to 7. He needs a top deck really bad, at least a chump blocker. But I think that this Sphinx's Revelation for 3 is going to put it out of reach. Or for 4, sorry. He drew a land. That's going to put him out of reach.
Wow, and the handshake. Zach Byrd, 7:02, advances to the top 8.
Yep, and that's the draws aren't necessarily bad in these tournaments, especially if you don't have more than one loss. It comes to the point where once you have